Chapter 93 The Hierophant Takes Over the Flower Girl. After the Nyolan Street murder incident, Fan Xian has been thinking about certain issues. Fuji Zijing has gone to the countryside to convalesce. I do not know whether it will leave a disability, and the 3 guards who died. The family members have also received adequate compensation, and even the relevant departments and ministries of the imperial court have issued a commendation order. The guards were buried in the clan tomb of the Fan clan on the outskirts of the capital, and Fan Xian would naturally go to pay his respects if he could leave the capital. The bloody facts had taught him that surviving in this world wasn't just a fling, and naturally, it wasn't just a treat, so he needed to have powers that were entirely his own, such as Wang Qinian, such as Fan Xiqing, and such as his own martial arts cultivation. Now in Kyoto, he had moved his meditation and cultivation time from noon to evening, and whenever he was half asleep, he always felt that the true qi in the snowy mountains behind his body's waist was like a flood of warm water, very comfortably rinsing every part of his body, and vaguely it seemed as if the quantity and denseness of this true qi had somehow increased. Regarding the fact that he had been able to kill that 8th-ranked expert at that time despite the harassment of the 2 female assassins, Fan Xian had always felt a bit incredulous. He had looked up the methods of flow of true qi of the guards such as Fuji Zijing and others, and realized that there was no one in this world who practiced in the same way as himself. This realization did not alarm him in the slightest, since he was able to kill an 8th-ranked expert over and over with his slender dagger and sleeve crossbow. It proved that his true qi worked. He was different from the martial arts practitioners in this world. His mind did not have the so-called unbreakable concept between ranks. The bloody mess of the big man's downfall proved his thoughts. As long as you were ruthless and accurate enough, even if you were a top 5 grandmaster, so what? Just the hegemony volume of the 2nd book has never made progress. Fan Xian's eyes fell on the box thrown very casually in the corner of the room. After coming to the capital, it seems that his mother left himself this thing to forget. It seems that when you have to go to find the key to go. The important suspect of the assassin's incident, Si Lili, had not yet been escorted back to Kyoto, but a decree crossed the sky of Kyoto like a bolt of lightning. This decree, issued from the Deep Palace, was about Fan Xian. Against the backdrop of a few days ago, the content of this decree appeared to be particularly unusual. By the grace of heaven, the Emperor decrees. Listening to this eunuch in front of him, his mouth kept turning over, but he couldn't hear what it was. Kneeling in the Fan Mansion lobby, Fan Xian is very afraid of this eunuch in front of him. Will spit on his face too, sad face looking at the increasingly wet green brick in front of him. The holy decree finally finished reading, and Lu's point, Fan Xian, according to the rules to do enough, called after the long live and then thank the grace, will be the holy decree to accept, lose and no smoke and fire to pass a silver ticket over, the eunuch only satisfied to go. Where do I put this? Fan Xian held the imperial decree in his hand and asked Lu, I can't keep holding it, can I? Lu smiled and took it over, although the mansion often receives the decree, but it can't be said that the mansion has a special room for putting it. These recent days, Fan Xian and Lu maintained a subtle, superficial harmony between them, a result of the times, but neither side knew what would happen in the future. To be honest, I'm also someone who has studied the scriptures, but how is it that I can't understand what that eunuch was talking about earlier? Returning to his bedroom, Fan Xian rebandaged the wound on his right shoulder and looked at his sister, who was sitting at the table looking at her with a wry smile. Eunuch Dai is from the Yufu state in Jiangnan, and has always spoken with an accent that is difficult to understand. But over the years, he has come to the residence from time to time to announce orders, so I can understand some of it. Fan Xian hurriedly asked, what did the imperial decree say, and why was it issued to me? Fan Ruo pursed her lips and smiled, not answering directly, instead saying, in fact, the palace has been rewarding the family for more than 10 years, and although my father's title has been suppressed and not elevated, my younger brother and I, and even Lu's have each had their own rewards, and it seems that it's my brother's turn now. Fan Xian was aware of these things. Even that little thing, Fan Xizhe, had a title of in-cavalry lieutenant, but when it came to himself, he couldn't help but be a little curious. I'm a character who hasn't returned to my clan to recognize my ancestors, and even if this palace wants to reward me, there's not much of a name for it. Right, so this time, His Majesty's decree just said that in the last incident, you killed the enemy's scout or something, with the state's merit, specially added the title of Taishang Temple Concordance. Taishang Temple Conciliator? Fan Xian's voice was greatly surprised. The Taishang Temple was the place in charge of the clan temple's sacrifices, and although the official position of the Concordance Lang was only an 8th grade official, he could go in and out of the celebration temple as he pleased. Since and Lin Wanner recognized, he also from time to time in guessing the last time in the Qing temple sacrifices of noblemen exactly what identity, since is Wanner's own long, and Wanner is since childhood in the palace grew up. It seems that that nobleman must be the palace of a certain big person, perhaps is the Empress Dowager or the eldest princess, just a few days ago the night to visit the Wanner. Know that she would have been worried about the conflict of interest in the aftermath of the wedding, so deliberately hold back did not ask each other. Could it be that this decree contains certain meanings? Fan Xian frowned as he thought, if that big shot was able to persuade His Majesty the Emperor to issue such a decree, and wanted to point out the temple celebrations that day, then what was she thinking? Was it a gesture of goodwill? Or is it a demonstration? Fan Ruo saw him thinking hard, finally couldn't help but laugh, pointing at her brother and said, Brother, really what things involve yourself, you are confused. This Taishang Temple Conciliator is the official position that every princess extra horse harnessed by the side of a team must take before the wedding. The official position that must be assumed before marriage. Fan Xian suddenly realized and smiled somewhat embarrassedly. It seemed that this marriage was finally settled. He then thought, because of his injury, he hadn't been to the royal courtyard for many days, so he thought that Wanner would be very worried when she found out about her assassination, and he wondered if her condition had worsened, would she be worried? Fan Xian suddenly felt a little confused, that ice-like woman, but she had that kind of mother, that kind of father. Yesterday, I asked my sister to go there for me. Did the letter get delivered? He suppressed the faint uneasiness in his heart and asked. Fan Ruo serenely replied, went there. Sister-in-law listened to brother's words and got through to that big maid. Now she steals good food every day. Her body is well nourished. It's just that when she heard that brother had been assassinated, she was a bit worried. But she was too rushed yesterday, and there was Yi Linger on the sidelines, so she wasn't able to write a letter over. Fan Xian sighed and didn't say anything. Fan Ruo is the person who knows Fan Xian the most in this world. As soon as she heard him sigh, she knew what was bothering him. Romeo and Juliet. Ruo had heard her brother tell this love story when she was a child, and had remembered it until now, smiling and encouraging him. Brother, you said that people should be brave enough to pursue happiness. Fan Xian was very touched and took his sister into his arms, patted her slightly thin back and said, don't worry, those two guys were one who drank poison and died, and one who committed suicide with a short knife. But your brother, I specialize in dispensing poison and playing with short knives. It's so different. Is the injury better? Looking at the teenage boy who leapt through the window, Lin Wanner painfully let him lie down on the bed and complained, what's the point of coming over when your body looks like this? Fan Xian said sadly, I'm worried that you're worried about me. Lin Wanner's heart warmed as she understood these two worries, poured out the remnants of the tea in her own teacup, made some new tea, and sent it to his lips, saying quietly, I'll listen to you, and I've been taking good care of my own body all these days, so you should take good care of your own body as well. Fan Xian took the teacup with one hand, blew away the white mist on it, and said gently, how can a county princess serve? Lin Wanner bit her lower lip and gasped, be angry with me again and I'll kick you out. Shed? Fan Xian looked at her with a bad smile. I've decided, after we get married, we'll go to Sanshan's other compound for the winter. Fan Xian half leaned on the bed, looking at his fiancée beside him who was looking at him with a worried face, and said with a smile, it will be good for your illness there, and I believe that before then, Mr. Fei Jiat should have returned to Kyoto as well. Don't just think about me. Lin Wanner bit her lower lip, her white teeth looking lovely on her red lips. What if something like this happens again in the future? Fan Xian already can't remember how many times he sneaked into this boudoir late at night. The guards in the courtyard really had a hard time, and actually didn't find out once. Not to mention that this pair of fiancés have long been familiar with each other nowadays. About this matter, Fan Xian also has enough pride. Imagine this is equal to the palace outside the small palace, which thief can steal to their own degree. What else can happen? Beiki is not a fool, since this time it has been revealed. Next time with the same maneuver, the court will not fall for it. Lin Wanner said sadly, I'm afraid that there are some people in the court who will dare to go after you recklessly precisely because there will be a Beiki as a front for another assassination in the future. Fan Xian has long known that his fiancée is a smart person, and she grew up in the palace, although there is the Empress Dowager love, but after all, and the environment is very complex, so for the official things then his own understanding of some. At this time, listening to her, smiled and lifted her soft chin, pinch to pinch, said, Don't worry, I firmly believe that I am the person with the best luck in this world. Lin Wan'er felt an itch under her jaw. Her heart was both joyful and nervous about this kind of affectionate action, and immediately 2 red colors showed up on her snow-white skin, hurriedly pushed Fan Xian's hand away, and said with some embarrassment, One can't always rely on luck to get by in life. Fan Xian liked to see this shy look of hers the most and teased, I've been lucky enough to have you. Is having me important? Lin Wanner slightly hung her head, looking over from this angle. Her long eyelashes were fluttering slightly, obviously a little nervous. Very important. Fan Xian wrapped her into his arms. He wasn't a very good at saying love words, so he was also a little nervous, clumsily trying to find each other's lips. Lin Wanner was hugged by him, only to feel a manly scent coming over her, and couldn't help but have her body soften a bit, leaning helplessly on his chest, and with a turn of her head she said softly, Who in the world is trying to kill you? This turn of the head, but happened to avoid Fan Xian's wolf kiss. Fan Xian's heart is so irritated, and then listening to this question, is the heart slightly cold, hugged the soft body in the arms tightly, hands in her back unconsciously sliding, do not care.